What used to take days of manual work is now done in minutes. Customer success teams can focus more on strategy and less on admin tasks, and ultimately deliver a more personalized and proactive experience. Hi everyone, my name is Curtis Castro and I'm a customer success architect at Sigma, specializing in data applications and AI. Today I want to walk you through a powerful data app that I built to address a common challenge in scaling businesses, managing a growing book of accounts while ensuring seamless customer coverage and strategic continuity. But before we dive in, I'd just like to give a huge thank you to my partner Amelia Helland, whose foundational work helped bring this app to life and solve many of the initial complexities. So, the challenge: retaining institutional knowledge at scale. Not an easy task, and as our company grows, account transitions naturally occur, making it harder to retain and surface critical customer insights, such as key pain points, past challenges, and ongoing initiatives. Without a centralized way to access this information, teams risk redundancy in customer interactions, leading to inefficiencies and potential friction in relationships. This is important because customer success managers juggle multiple accounts and historical interactions on a daily basis, and they need quick ways to access relevant context, whether it's identifying the right contacts for an initiative, assessing risks, or surfacing key insights to other stakeholders. So this process often requires navigating across multiple platforms like Jira, Zendesk, Gong, Salesforce, Gmail, Slack, and more, making it difficult to piece together a complete picture efficiently. We needed a more scalable solution. Previously, searching for insights across these platforms was a manual and time-intensive process. Gaining a full customer history could take hours and sometimes even days, meaning that deep analysis was often reserved for the most urgent situations. This fragmented approach wasn't sustainable, and customers understandably grew frustrated when asked to rehash issues that they had already discussed with previous teams. A data app was the right solution for us because we needed a solution that was fast, secure, and governed. One that empowered every team member to access advanced insights without requiring SQL expertise or analytical capabilities. Sigma's data apps framework provided the perfect foundation to make this a reality. By leveraging Snowflake Cortex, we built an AI-powered repository that consolidates all customer interactions into a single, easily searchable platform. This app enables teams to quickly filter and analyze conversations across multiple channels, using AI to extract insights, detect sentiment, and even generate meeting agendas automatically. So buckle up, stay tuned, and let's dive in. So today we'll get started with a quick live walkthrough showcasing some of the key features here. I'll show you a quick demo of the app in action, and then we can take it apart piece by piece. So the first thing I might do as a customer success manager is come in here and look at my account and get a quick sense of how active has this customer been recently. And up here in the header component, I've got a quick summary showing me that there are 42 interactions between my filters starting on January 20th, 2025 and ending on February 16th. So this should include all calls that have happened in that time and all the ones that are scheduled to happen in that time. Down here, we break it down by individual source, and we can see I have intercom chats, Zendesk tickets, Jira tickets, Gong calls, Gong emails, and internal notes. Now, oftentimes a customer might be working on their own, they're self-sufficient, and we haven't heard from them in a while. And so the customer success manager is going to want to know what's the status of that. So the first thing that they can do is just come in here and click the summary mode. Simply clicking into summary mode will open this modal where we'll see a message that the AI is thinking, and it's going to take about a minute or so to come up with a summary of all of the interactions. That's all 18 intercom chats, 7 Zendesk tickets, 4 Jira tickets, etc. And I can come back to it as needed. The performance will scale with the amount of data that I'm passing into it. So right now I can use this context window to see that I'm passing 71 pages of text to my AI knowledge base. And it's going to get me a response in about 3 minutes, which is a lot faster than a customer success manager could possibly read through that much text. Now, while we wait for that, I'll show you around on the timeline view. So here we're looking at Acme Corp. This is one customer, and a really nice thing about this workbook is that I can set this filter through a URL control. So I can link to this workbook in other workbooks that have a table with customer data and make sure that when I click through, I'm looking at this specific customer. I don't have to set any filters or do anything else. It's already ready to go. Now I have this breakdown of all the chat or interaction history across different channels, and I can open up this chat bot if I want to ask some more specific questions. We can start a new chat, and it has the concept of sessions built in. And I also have a number of different AI options here. I can look at recent chats. I can look at the chat on the timeline if I want to save it as an interaction that shows up here. Or I can also export it as CSV and send it in a readable format. Here I have a model selector, so I can choose which AI model I'm using in my chatbot. And I can also set the filters through this section. Lastly, I'll show the popular questions here. These are all generated from the questions that the users of the chatbot are asking, so that you can have a quick reference of what's important to my teammates and how do I get started with my analysis if you get stuck. So now it's just like any other chatbot. I just come in here and ask it a question like, what are the most pressing issues for this customer? And I'll click submit, and we'll wait for that. It's going to take about as long as it would if I were to copy and paste this exact same prompt into something like ChatGPT. Now let's see if our summary is ready. And it is. So we have a quick breakdown of all of the interactions with this customer across the last 4 weeks, which is a pretty large volume of data. Now down here I have this knowledge base filter. And this is showing me how much data am I currently allowing in with my filter selections. For this particular model that I'm using, there's a limit of about 100 pages of text. And so this meter here will show me how close am I to reaching that limit. As long as it's not all in red, then I'm good to go. Also, on the timeline, you'll notice that we have a bunch of different points. And when I hover over it, this tooltip appears. Well, there's there's a field in the tooltip called AI Summary, and it's telling me now that AI mode is not enabled. If I want to enable AI summaries on the timeline, I simply have to click this timeline AI switch, and it will generate a summary for every point here. Now, that performance again scales with the number of points, and so I would expect this one to take a bit longer. However, if we switch this over to a different customer and look at them for the last 4 weeks. I know this customer has a lot fewer users, there's a lot less data. And so now I'll flip on Timeline AI and we'll see it should take about a minute for this to process. So while we wait for that, I'll go poke around this table here and show you this table is the source data for this visualization. This has all of the interactions between the timeline, or between the date range right here. And so if I want to drill into the specifics of a certain interaction, let's say this intercom chat, I can click this button to view the transcript. I can add notes to it here. Or I can come over here to generate an ad hoc AI summary. Just like the previous summary that I showed, except this one is summing up only this particular interaction as opposed to the entire data set. Additionally, I have that same functionality built in for the upsell and churn AI, which uses a stored prompt that is from a self-improving model that we use looking at Gong transcripts from either churned or customers who have expanded by a very large margin. And this picks up indicators of what we can look for with our customers to see what are signs of success. And so if I click one of these, it'll generate an ad hoc AI summary, specifically pulling from our proprietary churn analysis model. And that should take about 20 to 30 seconds, and here we go. We have a response back very quickly, putting just a simple emoji indicator next to each one of the factors that was present or not present. Now, one thing that we've learned as we continue to work with more and more different AI applications is that performance does scale with the amount of context that you pass to the LLM. And so that's a constant theme throughout this workbook, balancing the need for fast performance with the need for critical insights. And so I've included this query mode here, which defaults to being in performance mode. And that means that all of the AI available in this workbook is opt-in. None of it happens at runtime unless the user chooses to. So when I click this, it generates this summary for the first time. However, if I turn it on to performance mode, or turn it from performance mode to insight mode, we'll see it's going to generate one of these summaries for each interaction. And this will take a while, but it's the quickest and most surefire way to get a complete picture of the AI analysis across all of these interactions. All right, and about a minute and a half later, the query completed, and it returns these color scaled cells indicating a heat map of churn or upsell likeliness. It also generated an AI summary for each one of these, and so I can click to view. Now, sometimes you might want to filter it down for just a single interaction ID, and for example, get a summary of that call, or have it generate a list of follow-ups based on what was done. And if you want to do that, you can simply click on one of these interactions. It'll filter this chart down to show only one point representing that interaction. And you can either apply one of these quick AI summaries to it, or you can go to the chatbot and ask questions about just that one interaction. We have a dynamic warning surfaced up here, reminding the user that this knowledge base is filtered down to just a single interaction. And so in order to clear that filter, we would just click again. So that should cover the functionality of this app, but now let's see how we build it. Now that you're familiar with how the application works, let's take a deep dive into the data modeling behind it. So here in my interactions model, we can see the final gold table that I use, and I follow the Databricks medallion architecture model to show the different stages of development here. So if we go back to the bronze table, for example, we'll see these are all the raw data sources coming directly from the data warehouse. The only one that I've made any modifications to is this, doing a lateral flatten. Then when we come over here, these are the silver tables. These are the ones that are aggregated and prepared so that we have all of the columns matching up and everything that we'll need for our final gold table, which lastly brings us to the gold table. This is just a union of all of the different tables that are on the silver tab. So I can go in here and show the way that this is constructed. We're lining up each one of these columns: date stamp, account name, conversation ID, interaction timestamp, source, user email, interaction date, full chat transcript, account owner user GUID, and account GUID. And so from each of those tables on the silver tab, we're lining up all of these columns so that they can all be unioned together into one single large table. Once that process is done, that leaves us with the interactions model, that the data that we see here in this table, filtered down for one specific customer. However, the model itself has the data for all of our customers across all time. So this workbook allows you to tap into that model and filter it down to a very small slice of that data so that you can actually extract the most benefit from the AI and let it work within its confines. Additionally, we're using AI in a number of different places throughout the workbook, which is triggered with our actions. So when I click on this query mode, as we saw earlier, it turns on the churn and upsell AI, as well as pre-generating an AI summary for all of these. Now when that's off, I need to opt into it. And so the whole thing is just using very simple spreadsheet formula syntax to create this logic that is used to govern whether an action fires or not. Of course, in order to be able to tap into all this data, nobody needs to know SQL or know how to query the database. Sigma already does a phenomenal job of generating the SQL for me so that I can just click around intuitively and have it translate into advanced SQL actions on the data warehouse side. But let's say I don't even know where to begin with the analysis. What tables should I look at? Things of that nature. That's where the chatbot really comes in handy. So I can ask it questions specifically from an analytical framework and get recommendations on how I can continue to drill into that data using the Sigma tools and features that are available here. Additionally, it's able to parse back through conversations in sometimes as much as an entire customer's history with Sigma, and be able to look back and see from the very beginning what was important to them, what was on their mind, have we been able to achieve these goals. The reason we approached it in this way is because we prioritize scalability and data security and speed. By keeping all the computations inside of Sigma and Snowflake, we avoided the risks of external AI solutions while providing instant governed access to insights. Some of the key features involved in this workbook are the interactive table down here, the ability to add notes and use this not only as a way to read from your interactions data, but also to collect data from your teams and centralize it in one place. And you can do that both at the individual interaction level or at the account level. Let's see how all that comes together. So I'll go over here to my workbook in edit mode. And when I click on this table, that'll give me access to the actions menu right here. And so each one of these columns you'll see has actions that it triggers. What we're saying in the breakdown is on select, when I click on the churn AI column, if this condition is true, then I want it to set a hidden control here and then open a modal. The control that it's setting is the control that's visible on the modal. So let's go take a look and see what happens. If we click on the table here and go to the tooltip, we'll see the formula for the AI summary. And in the very beginning of this long formula, the first thing you'll see is if mode or persistent AI summary. So these are the control IDs responding to the two controls here. And if my mode is enabled to insight, then that turns this on. Also, since I don't want it to only be with the query mode, I also want timeline AI to work. So I can turn this on, which satisfies that condition in the tooltip. One of these needs to be true in order for the rest of this to happen. Otherwise, we do nothing. Similarly, down here in the table, when I click on the actions menu, I can see that each one of these columns has actions that it triggers. And in many cases, we have conditions like here. The query mode needs to be an insight in order for this action to fire. One of the biggest challenges that I ran up against while creating this app was balancing the need for intuitive user interface with the limitations of working with LLMs. And so that's why I included this knowledge base meter here, the purpose of which is to show how much data are we currently using compared to the AI's upper limit of how much it can work with. So as long as this has some amount of green on it, I know I'm good. It'll turn all red when I have too much data, and there will also be a warning sign that surfaces up here thanks to a dynamic text query. So if I want to filter the data, I can click on the AI knowledge base button, and it tells me a little bit more about how much data I'm working with. It's going to load this chart here, which will show me a bar graph of all of the chats with this company across our historical interactions with them. And right now I can see I'm using 85 pages out of a max 100. If I want to zoom in a little bit, maybe focus on a particular month, I can do that by changing the date grain down here, and then the chart will reload. And then I can click on the chart to set the filters, which are represented, the date range of data that I'm working with is represented by these, and do an investigation. And changing that filter puts us just under our limit at 96 out of 100 pages. So now I can go back to my data and start asking more questions, generating summaries, working with my chatbot, etc. So in order to generate our churn prompt, the way that this works is we look at all of the customers who have churned and then extract all of their gong calls attached to the closed lost opportunities from these churned customers. And so we run it through an LLM filter and extract at the individual call level what reasons were cited for the customer wanting to churn. Then we go through and aggregate all of these call summaries into a customer summary and add that customer summary into a repository of churned customer summaries. Then on a monthly basis, we run another process to aggregate all of the churned customer summaries and extract the new lessons that I've learned from customers who may have churned. Unfortunately, there aren't that many, but it does help us always learn what we can be doing better and how we can stay on top of it. Similarly with upsells, we take a patch of customers who have expanded their usage of Sigma and their spend on Sigma by a factor of greater than 10x, and we look at their calls attached to opportunities that have been closed won at a high rate of expansion. And from those customers, we learn how can we add more value to your business? And so from looking at all these success stories, we're also able to find out what do customers really like and what makes them want to spend more with us ultimately. So when I go into the chatbot, I'll break down the anatomy of what's going on here, and it's a pretty simple interface. We have a table, just like any of the tables that you've seen elsewhere in Sigma. We have some dynamic text at the top here, a couple of buttons. This one starts a new chat by creating a new session ID. This one opens a pop-up with some AI options. And when I close it, it takes me right back to my chatbot. Then down here we have a little text box where I can type a prompt and I can click submit on this button. All of the magic really happens with this one button. Main functionality is we're inserting a row into an input table. The first row that we insert is our message. That's what's typed here. And so it takes this, adds it to an input table, also logs the user as the author. So here's our prompt coming from this box. Our response is a blank column. That'll be filled out in the next step by the AI. Then we have our session ID and our account GUID. So this allows me to tie it back and always filter down these chats to be associated with one particular customer. The next crucial step is this second insert row. This is where we get the response back from the AI. So in the prompt column, we're going to leave that blank. In the response column, we'll use a formula. And here I have this prompt. It takes in a bunch of dynamic parameters representing different user selections and things that the user adds to the app and creates this dynamic output for them. So then same as the previous step, we have a session ID and an account GUID, and that just keeps all the data together. Now lastly, we have these other actions here. These aren't actually necessary for the functionality, except perhaps clearing the prompt. But the reason that I have it set up to clear the popular questions, clear the chat prompt, clear the prompt, these are all just to create a more familiar user experience so that, for example, when I type a chat here and click submit, we can clear it from the screen, but keep it somewhere else so that we can pass it to the AI query that we're about to send next. But for the most part, it's just insert the prompt, insert the response, and in the formula for the response, you want to pass the data from the previous prompts. And that wraps up our deep dive into the Customer 360 Actionable Insights Assistant. Let's quickly examine the impact. Customer 360 AI streamlines workflows by consolidating interactions into a single interface. AI-driven automations eliminate manual sentiment tracking and deep dive analysis. And customer success managers gain instant, actionable insights, saving time and improving efficiency. First, AI-powered insights can be democratized within Sigma. No SQL required. We've also proven that privacy-first AI is possible without external vendors. And by making AI queries opt-in, we ensure scalability and performance stability. What used to take days of manual work is now done in minutes. Customer success teams can focus more on strategy and less on admin tasks, and ultimately deliver a more personalized and proactive experience. As we move forward, best practices like limiting LLM context window sizes, using performance mode, and leveraging warehouse writeback will help maintain efficiency and reliability in AI-driven workflows while simultaneously reducing compute costs. But we're not stopping there. Next up, we're refining our predictive churn scoring model, introducing next best action recommendations, and integrating a communications portal to share insights directly with our customers. So thank you for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more innovations in AI and customer success because we're just getting started.